going 5, 4, 3, 2. Krista Raymer, welcome.
Hey,
Welcome. I was
thank
telling
you.
you, you're not here right now, but we have a snow day here in Toronto. So I'm wearing my Roots sweatshirt because it's the thing I like to shovel in. Makes me feel very
Okay.
Canadian.
Okay.
You got it like overfoot. Kids are out of school. Nobody's going to work. It's one of those days here.
It's like a whole Northeast thing. It's not only a Toronto thing.
I know, but I only care about my small purview of the world, and there was a ton of shoveling when I woke up this morning. So that's what's happening here. But what was happening last week here on this day, you and I chatted going into
Yes.
Super Bowl weekend. We talked about Super Bowl cannabis sales. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to paraphrase what you said. It's there is a bump, there is a lift. The lift is not
Yep.
as great as 420 or July 4th, but neither is the drop off after the weekend because it's like it doesn't push or pull from other things. It is an event based, occasional
Purchase.
based
hmm
purchase. Um, do you have any results for us?
Oh, I've got results. Okay. So taking a look, I dug into headset a little bit and
Okay.
specifically like only looked at Missouri.
Okay.
Why I only looked at Missouri, obviously the Chiefs, Kansas, there's a lot going on, but also it's a pretty stable market in terms of week over week sales with not a
Okay.
lot of new stores opening, which like makes the data a bit
Yeah.
messy. So as a trend line leading into the week of Super Bowl, kind of like for the last, call it 9 to 10 weeks, the average weekly revenue coming out of that market is about 27 million weekly. Okay. The week of Super Bowl, 31.5.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's good. That's really good. And this actually represents like a 15%, almost 16% lift in sales for the week of Super Bowl. But if we look at the week right before Super Bowl, that's also one of the biggest weeks of the year so far. So year to date, that's like one of the biggest ones. It represents a 5% lift from the week prior to the week of Super Bowl. So still not an insignificant increase when we are thinking like week over week data points. That's a lot. What's interesting is to watch where and if this sales pattern trend lifts and holds, because like we talked about last week, we usually see March have higher sales. So what happens in the next kind of like week, 2 weeks before we walk into March? What is really, really interesting though, is when I was taking a look, it's not an increase in the like average unit price. It's actually the increase in just more units sold that generated the lift in sales. So the average item price for the week before Super Bowl was $27.25.
Yep.
The week of Super Bowl was $27.20, so like a 5 cent
Right.
difference. The margin the week of Super Bowl is about like 0.5% less than the week before. So I actually likely believe, or I believe that not likely, I believe that it had a little bit to do with some of the discounting that would have been associated with some of the sales, but it wasn't enough to like completely disrupt the profitability of the products being sold. So unlike Super Bowl or unlike 420, for example, when you see a massive spike in sales, but the gross margin dollars associated with those sales is less, that isn't necessarily the case in this example. And so I think it just like reinforces the fact that purchasing for occasion is a bit of a different purchasing pattern than, say, for example, 420, and therefore provides a really interesting opportunity for retailers to see a bit of a lift mid-February, which in traditional retail February is really scary.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So in short, the Super Bowl was good for cannabis sales in Missouri, but bad for the Kansas City Chiefs.
that's the takeaway.
That is the takeaway. That
Yeah.
didn't take. It wasn't just bad. It was awful for the Kansas City Chiefs, but good for Missouri-based cannabis retailers. It sounds like, and there
Yeah.
are interesting. I mean, a part of it is Missouri is well, it's where the Chiefs play, but also it's a big cannabis market. But if you
Yeah.
were a cannabis market anywhere, looking at these days, like I think we had some other data from Swede earlier in the week that it was like 13% overall bump. Like it is a significant cannabis holiday, if you will, in and around the Super Bowl that people can plan on their yearly planning to think about, especially, of course, in places like Missouri, or if the team happened to be from California or Massachusetts, wherever it is, legal
Yeah.
states, there could be even a more significant bump. But the part that you mentioned that I think is super interesting is that it actually doesn't need to be heavily discounted necessarily. The margins can stay the same because people are going to buy for that specific occasion, which is almost
Yeah.
unique unto the year, really.
Yeah, it was a volume increase, like the purchasing volume changed as opposed to unit price changes. So it wasn't like we sold the same number of units but sold like more expensive product. It literally was that we just added more units. And so it's interesting to think about like how you generate promotions to be able to support that, what type of products we are presenting. If the customer usually buys an eighth in a pre-roll, maybe for this occasion they were buying an eighth and three pre-rolls. And so when you're looking at a calendar, really like as a starting the year, this is a really significant lift as a trend line from the beginning of January. So yeah, it's something to definitely to pay attention to.
Yeah, and those 3 pre-rolls, you could call them a field goal's worth of pre-rolls. See what I did there? I actually tied it right
Wow,
back into the big game.
there you are. Put you on the promotional planning committee.
Yes, please do. It was not a big cannabis holiday in our house. We only had our kids around and um, pretty mellow night. The game was over fairly early, so it wasn't like there was people were going to stick around for a long time. What are you? So now we're in a different part of the year. We're in like
Yeah,
late February, certainly a down time, but not too down to be planning for 420. I think you guys posted on your LinkedIn page today. Is there 66 days to 420? Does that sound right to you?
that could be right.
Yeah, it sounds
That
right
could
to
be
me.
right. Yeah.
Uh, and try to make the use of those 66 days the best you can, I would imagine, if you're a cannabis retailer.
Yeah, yeah, we're starting 420 planning now. Really great 420 planning will include partner relationships, and so those take time to make sure that you've got the right plan there, as well as like just planning around cadence of communication. When do we let our customers know? How do we give them a heads up? Do we give our loyalty program like a little bit of a special heads up compared to all of the other customers? When do we drop the promos on our website? We can see, thanks to some data points from Surfside, we can see that the traffic on websites starts before 420, but the transactions lag. And so there's something there to think about. How do you communicate without sacrificing sales early? So,
Hmm.
what do you let our customer know when we have an audience looking at the website
Yeah.
versus when they actually make a transaction for 420?
Interesting, interesting. So there's more web traffic spikes because people are looking for deals or looking for what you have for the day
What's
of. And
Yeah.
are they buying in advance or are they like just shopping or window shopping?
No, they're not. The transactions are not happening. So there really is just like a lift in some online traffic without a correlation to number of transactions. So there is a discrepancy of lift versus what day the transactions actually happen, which
Amazing.
could be like when the customer is available to go to the store. Could be like how the retailers presented to deals, what days those deals start. It's not so straightforward in the data to know, but I think it is an important consideration of being like, what when that level of traffic lands on the website, what do they see?
And also, just by with those that have not looked at the calendar, like Krista has or I have, 420 is actually a Sunday this year. So the Saturday
Mhm.
before is going to be it's Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is going to be. It's interesting to see 420 on a Sunday because it gives a lot of people a lot of time for that Saturday sale to happen for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Krista, as always, thank you for
Yes.
joining us here on Thursday, bringing the heat today with the Missouri data around the Super Bowl. Love it. Thank you so much, and we will connect with you next week. And thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Jay.
You got it. Thanks, Krista.